Welcome to the She Built This podcast. In this 6-part mini-series, entitled Wellness is Not the Goal, I will explore the 3 main issues I see time and again with women as they look to make changes to their health and well-being in midlife. The confusion around what to action, the misunderstanding about their body, and the constant juggling of nutrition advice. But also the bigger picture of what this actually is looking to achieve. Is wellness it? Are we just supposed to be well? Or is readiness the real goal? Ready for action, for life, for adventure? Come with me as we explore this topic in detail. Welcome to this first episode in the mini-series of 6 episodes. This one I want to really cover looking at your exercise routine and how you can maximize what you're doing. Now, I've sort of entitled this Pilates Won't Make You Stronger, and it is a little bit clickbaity, I guarantee that. I will first off say that I don't think there's anything wrong with Pilates. What I will say is that I think some people think they're getting something from it that they're not. And whilst it is incredible for lots of things that I will go on to in just a minute, if you're looking at it from a strength training perspective, it isn't strength training. It is great for lots of things, but it isn't going to give you some of the benefits that actual strength training will. So when we look at the confusion that can go along around, okay, so what am I supposed to do? That's what I want to unpick in this episode, is to kind of look at, okay, let's really get super clear on what your goal is. Because actually your goal will be completely different from somebody else's goal. And then the generic advice that is put out there that, strength training is good for you, Pilates is good for you, you need to get your cardio in. You do. You need to have a balance, but that balance is going to look very different for you than it will for somebody else. And so what I want you to think about first is, what is your goal? And that goal needs to go deeper than the overarching theme really of this podcast is understanding that is wellness really what we're looking for? Because actually, if you think about what you actually want, is it that you want to drop 5 kilos? Well, why? Is it that you want to be stronger? Well, why? What is it that you're trying to get at the other end of it? Because just being stronger is not, and you're kind of like, oh, well, I want to make sure I'm, building muscle for my old age. Okay, but why? What is that going to look like for you? What is that going to mean? And this is why I want to kind of frame this whole podcast really in, what are we trying to look at getting? Are we looking for wellness? Are we looking for readiness? What are you getting ready for? So when we're looking at Pilates, for example, Pilates will do lots of things for you. It just won't build muscle in a really fundamental way. So I want to take you from confused, where you might be right now, following random tips on the internet and picking up little bits of nuggets of information, to understanding why certain things work in certain ways and how to get bang for your buck. That is one of my favorite phrases. We are all so busy. How do you get the most out of the time, the precious time that you spend training? And then I want you to have a satisfaction, to have training in a way that you love, that delivers results, and that works for you and your goal, this goal that we've set, this why are we doing this? What is it that you're trying to achieve? So Pilates is really good for endurance, posture, mobility, and control of muscles. So when we think about our why, when we think about what we're trying to achieve, it sits in there really nicely, doesn't it? Because we want to be able to move really freely, to have great range of motion, to be able to, step up big steps, to be able to, hold ourselves in everyday life. That's really important, to have that control, that understanding of our bodies. An element of it is what we call proprioception. So the knowing where a certain body part is in space, basically. So we know where it is. And that's really good for that. And it's something that we innately have, but it can be, it can go as we get older. What it's not so great for is building bone density, progressive overload, and creating metabolic stress, which are the three fundamentals for building muscle. And so what we want to do is to look at creating a structure where you have a sprinkle of some of the things that you're going to need for the kind of the everyday things, and then some of the things that you're going to need to actually start to build this life out that you actually want. So resistance training with weights is the way to build muscle. But how much? When? What exercise? Well, this comes down to a very specific framework for you, for your starting point. And if you're looking for a framework, you can head to my Skool. There's a strength training program in there, which does give you an overview of what something might look like for you, to give you a structure so that you're ticking some of the boxes. So we're doing the lower body, we're doing the upper body, we're doing core, but it's nothing, none of it is kind of overlaying. But that, in all honesty, is the easy bit. It really is. Don't get too overwhelmed with getting the precise, exact right program. Find a starting point that is good for you and move from that space. Within the Sampira framework that I set up, we look at capacity code, and this is huge in here. So when we think about what we can hold physically and even mentally and emotionally, so having a strength training program in your mix of things that you're going to put together needs to feel like it's physically doable and that it's not going to draw too much on your resources. I would also urge you to look at the overall pattern. So, for example, thinking about your week, you may have, okay, I'm going to strength train 2 to 3 times a week. I'm going to do Pilates. I'm going to get my steps in. That's a really nice kind of, overall program for, most people. And is that pushing too much of your capacity? Is that going to be okay on a good week? Or is that just going to be okay? Is that going to be okay on a week where things haven't quite gone to plan? And what I would urge you to look at is to find some sweet spot where your capacity can hold it and it doesn't feel too heavy. Because if it feels too heavy, you simply won't do it. And so finding, and this is the thing though, this is where the capacity code is magical, because it expands. Like, it's only once you realize how much you can actually hold that you stretch into it, but you're not going to be there now. Think of it like an elastic band, that you're constantly kind of using and stretching and bringing out. And eventually it kind of becomes a little bit less springy, right? And it starts to, it's probably not a great analogy, but it's essentially what you're doing is you're stretching that so that it actually starts to expand with you. And your capacity to hold a strength training program, do your mobility, do your walking, get your steps in, is all part of that. So what I would urge you to think about is really what things are important to you. What is the goal? Come back to what are you trying to achieve? That is the number one thing that I want you to take away from this session now, is what specifically, and I don't mean the kind of the outcome goal. I mean, what is the process goal and what is the thing that you're going to sit on the other side with? Who are you going to become when you have done this thing? What is that going to look like? And I want you to sit there and really imagine this life that is with you when you have done this thing. What does it mean for you? Because until you're clear on that, it becomes arbitrary. Everything else is just stuff. Come through to the next episode where we're going to talk about how we train like an athlete, even when you're not. I'll see you there.